The Department of Justice announced that it would demote the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and not bring prosecutions there. It sacked 17 inspectors general when it started, people who saved us a combined $91 billion last year in ferreting out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in the government. It pulled the plug on the corruption prosecution of Mayor Adams in New York after Mayor Adams agreed to engage in a political alliance with Donald Trump, which then prompted the resignation ultimately of 6 or 7 attorneys, including the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Danielle Sassoon, who was a conservative Federalist Society lawyer and a Republican. Her number 2 also quit, saying that you'd have to be a fool or a coward to give in to this kind of pressure. Then they decimated the Public Integrity Unit. They dismantled the Kleptocracy Unit in Department of Justice. They shut down other units focused on stopping foreign interference in American politics. Mr. Fox, why is prosecuting white-collar crime with specific enumerated offenses with the definite material elements in the crime, why is prosecuting white-collar crime important?
Yeah, so I looked, it seems like there's about maybe 7% or give or take of crimes that DOJ prosecutes. It seems like that will fall under the white-collar category. I think, there's a lot of the work that the federal government prosecutes are things that far exceed the doctrine of enumerated powers, or things that the federal government has absolutely zero business getting involved in. I think white-collar crime is one that arguably can fall under the ambit of the federal government, and it's something that is important to, discourage political corruption, make sure that people are, being prosecuted because the Department of Justice has evidence that they committed a crime, and they're not being prosecuted because of, what their political views are, or that they're not being let off because of what their political views are. People don't trust a system that targets people or that ignores people based upon the views they espouse or the people they support.
So do you think that undermines public trust in the justice system?
Oh, dramatically.
It sends out the message that we have this 2-track system, one for people who engage in kind of the run-of-the-mill state law crimes like assault or theft or robbery, and then one for white-collar criminals in the government or in corporations or in politics who are able to get away with it if they know the president or they know the right person.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also goes back to the question Ranking Member McBath asked, which is, about are they going to target people who they know will fight back versus won't have the resources to? So I think, that's all very related there.
Yeah. Have you studied the whole question of whether there is systematic inclusion of a mens rea requirement, so we're not putting people in jail for most regulatory offenses?
Yeah, so a lot of regulatory offenses, and frankly also a lot of statutory crimes, don't include a mens rea. The theft charge that I talked about before in the Moore and Mansell case, if I were to take Mr. Canaparo's water bottle and give it to Professor Turley, we're on federal property, technically I could be charged. That's preposterous. No reasonable person would ever think that's theft, but without an actual explanation as to what theft is that I actually intended to, take his wallet and bring it home with me, people would, they would absolutely, fall victim to these types of prosecutions, which dramatically undermines trust in the system.
Yeah, I understand that the chairman and I think Ms. McBath have this Count the Crimes Act, which suggests that we don't even know how many crimes we have. There's been such a radical proliferation of offenses throughout the federal code. But do you think it would be advisable for us, once we've counted the crimes, to propose a Cut the Crimes Act, where we get rid of a lot of the offenses that transform malum prohibitum regulatory crimes into real criminal offenses that most people would think should apply only to malum in se?
Yes, certainly. I know the chairman also has the Mens Rea Reform Act. I think those two things in tandem, if you set a default mens rea that way, we're not sweeping people into the criminal justice system over things they didn't know would be crimes. And then also, I'm not sure it's actually possible to count all the crimes, but assuming we can do that, then we're able to sort of come to a consensus as to what doesn't belong. But I would also say if we're not able to do that, there's other changes we could do. Like I have an idea that we could just inform jurors that they have the power to acquit against the evidence when justice requires. So in a case where the Department of Justice brings a charge like the case I discussed before, where any rational person would think it's absurd, the jury can be like, you know what, we don't agree with the defense theory, this is nonsense, we're going to acquit. And that's a power they still have.
And I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to commit a criminal infraction here by going over my time.
It's too late.
Too late.
Yeah.
What we just heard from Congressman Jamie Raskin is not just a list of bureaucratic changes or legal adjustments. It's a roadmap showing how the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi has been reshaped in ways that fundamentally weaken public trust in our institutions. Think about what it means when the DOJ downgrades enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. That law was designed to prevent U.S. companies from engaging in bribery and corruption abroad. By stepping back from prosecuting it, we're essentially saying it's open season for corporate corruption overseas, which doesn't just affect foreign markets, but also distorts competition and undermines America's reputation as a nation that stands for fairness and rule of law. Then there's the firing of 17 inspectors general. These are not political showpieces. They are watchdogs. They're the ones who comb through the books, root out waste, fraud, and abuse, and make sure taxpayer dollars are being used responsibly. Last year alone, those offices saved us $91 billion. Removing them isn't just a personnel shakeup. It's dismantling an essential layer of oversight. It's like removing the smoke detectors from your house and then claiming the place is safer because you don't hear any alarms. But it doesn't stop there. When Raskin points out that the DOJ dropped a corruption prosecution against a sitting mayor after that mayor aligned politically with Donald Trump, it raises the question, are decisions being made on the basis of justice or politics? The resignations of 6 or 7 attorneys, including respected professionals like Danielle Sassoon, who had impeccable conservative credentials, tell us this isn't just partisan noise. These are career lawyers who felt they could no longer operate in good conscience under those conditions. That speaks volumes. And let's not forget the dismantling of the Public Integrity Unit and the Kleptocracy Unit. Those weren't symbolic offices. They were the parts of DOJ tasked with investigating the most sensitive cases: corruption by government officials, the laundering of foreign dictators' wealth through the U.S. financial system, and interference in our democracy by outside actors. Shutting them down isn't trimming fat. It's cutting away the muscle that protects the heart of our democracy. This all ties back to a bigger theme: public trust in the justice system. When ordinary citizens see white-collar crimes go unpunished while low-level offenses are prosecuted aggressively, it sends a message. It tells people that the system is rigged, that there are 2 sets of rules, one for the powerful and one for everyone else. That perception alone can do immense damage to democracy, because once people stop believing the system is fair, they stop believing in the system at all. And here's something worth reflecting on. Raskin isn't just raising alarms about abstract legal principles. He's warning us about what happens when political loyalty becomes more valuable than accountability, when oversight is viewed as an obstacle rather than a safeguard, and when those entrusted to defend the Constitution start dismantling the very protections that uphold it. That's why this moment matters. It's not just about Pam Bondi or the DOJ. It's about whether Americans can still trust that no one is above the law. It's about whether we accept a justice system that shields insiders while punishing outsiders, or whether we demand one that applies equally to all. And this is where you come in, because democracy doesn't function if the public is silent. So I want to hear from you. Do you think the DOJ has crossed the line into politicization, or are these justifiable decisions in a changing political environment? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and let's have the conversation out in the open where it belongs. Because at the end of the day, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and right now we need a lot more of it. If you believe accountability should never take a backseat to politics, then make sure to hit that like button so this conversation reaches more people. Subscribe for more in-depth breakdowns you won't get anywhere else, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss the truth behind the headlines. And most importantly, drop a comment. Do you think the DOJ has become too politicized, or is this just business as usual in Washington? Your voice matters, and I want to hear it.